So today I'm going to work on my 1995 Nissan 300ZX. It's something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I guess ever since I bought the car. Today I'm going to start work on converting it to a manual transmission. So I've got it lifted up on blocks. It's ready to go. So let's get to work. So this is the stock 5-speed manual transmission that came with my car when I bought it. In the last episode, I pressure washed it, and afterwards I found some pretty serious cuts and gouges in the bell housing here. So I had to weld those up and grind the welds down flat. So there's one last thing I'd like to do with this guy before I'm ready to install it, and that's replacing the seals in this input shaft right here. You know, when I first got this transmission, before I pressure washed it in here, there was a good bit of oil down here at the bottom, and usually oil here means the rear main seal, but it kind of seemed like it maybe was coming from below this sort of area, you know, this front cover thing here. And it seems like it's pretty easy to replace this front seal here. There's actually some sort of like circular seal, and this whole internal cover here does have a seal as well. So I bought both of those seals. I'm gonna pull off all of these bolts, and we'll replace these seals, and hopefully that'll solve the oil problem. I'm definitely gonna replace the rear main seal in my car as well, because there's a lot of oil leaking from the back of this engine, and that's a big suspect. So I'm gonna grab a few tools and let's pull this thing off. All right, well, here's what it looks like behind that cover. You can see some, like, I guess, bearings in there. Looks good. I wasn't expecting it to look bad, but it's good to see that everything looks to be in pretty good condition. And here's the seal. It's not obviously bad, but, you know, it's a good thing to replace anyway. It was just a few dollars. You can kind of see some oil and grime on the inside of this sort of input shaft collar. Probably some of that was from all of my grinding yesterday, so we'll clean this out really good. We'll replace this outside gasket. Replace this outside gasket here, and we'll replace this little seal. We'll go ahead and clean all this stuff up as well. All right, got this thing nice and polished up, especially on the inside there where this input shaft is gonna seal. Obviously that's the most important part. And you know, I went ahead and cleaned up the outside as well. You know, it probably wasn't necessary, but I always found it's a good idea to clean stuff up while you have it. That way later, when you maybe have like another oil leak, it'll be easier to find where it's coming from, you know? So, all right, so I got this seal, got this other seal here. So let's get this thing installed, and then we'll go clean up the other side. Okay, now that the transmission is ready, I'm kind of getting ready to install some of this clutch stuff. You know, I've got a new throwout bearing, got a new pilot bushing, and I'm going to use my existing clutch fork here. First thing I noticed was that this throwout bearing does not fit directly onto this input shaft, but But luckily I found in a box of parts, I did keep the old throwout bearing, which you actually have to press off this sort of like sleeve thing. And this of course does fit, and it does adapt this bigger throwout bearing to the input shaft collar here. So I'm gonna have to press this out. And I found this socket that is the perfect size, and that's lucky because this is the biggest socket that I have. So I should be able to press this guy out on my vise. One thing I noticed is that this new throwout bearing is actually a good bit bigger than the old throwout bearing, and it is thicker as well, as you can see here. That worries me a little bit because when I bolt this transmission on there, if it is too thick and it pushes down on this pressure plate, it's going to not let the clutch engage all the way. I bought this all together as a kit though, so I'm hoping that they accounted for this bigger throwout bearing, and you know, maybe this whole thing is a little bit shorter to run this bigger bearing. All right, that actually came off pretty easy, which is good because hopefully that means that this one will go on also very easy. Looking at this, it's important to press it from this inside part as opposed to this top part here. My socket just isn't quite big enough, but luckily I have this pipe that I have no idea where it came from, and I always keep stuff like this because you never know when you're gonna need it. So I think what I'm gonna do is just cut off a little section of this, and hopefully that'll press right on with my bench vise. All right, finally got this thing done. Seems like the vise really wasn't the way to do this because this thing kept pressing on like crooked, and eventually I had to kind of carve out this piece of pipe that I had so that it would fit around the inside sort of collar of this thing. And I kind of just tapped it in with a hammer. It wasn't really that hard to press on, but it definitely was very hard to get straight. So I'm glad to have this finished finally and ready to go in. So next I think I want to pull out the interior. I already pulled out the passenger seat before I parked it all close up against the wall there. So really I just need to pull out the driver's seat, center console, and I might pull out the carpet too, or at least pull it back. I think I want to also give this thing like a good vacuum and clean and all that. All right, let's get this driver's seat out of here. All right, I got all this interior center console stuff all taken out, and it seems like I have pretty good access to the shifter now because of course I'm gonna have to remove this before getting started on removing the auto. I want to make sure I disconnect everything from up here, you know, any sort of linkage. And I'm not sure how much further back I'm going to need to disassemble this whole, you know, interior dashboard, but it seems like I do have good access to the bolts here, so I might be okay just like this. So I guess next step is to try and take apart this shifter here and see if we can get this guy out. Okay, well, I got it loose in here. Broke a few pieces on the way, but it's not a big deal. I think there's one last sort of like linkage piece down below here, probably like the main shifter linkage, which seems to be holding it up. So I guess I'll have to disconnect that from the bottom side. I guess the next step is to crawl under and start taking stuff off from the bottom. All right, so let's crawl under here and take a look at what needs to come off to remove this automatic transmission. You know, this is actually going to be my first time crawling under this car and seeing what it's like under there. You know, I glanced under a few times, but I've never really got a good view, so there's definitely a few leaks somewhere. This thing's been marking its territory on my garage floor now for a while, so let's see if we can figure out where these leaks are coming from. All right, well, definitely have a pretty big oil leak here. Looks like it's coming from maybe the oil pan, or maybe there's a good chance it's the rear main seal. I actually did buy a new rear main seal, so that's something I will be replacing. I hope that's what it is and not something, you know, more difficult to get to, but otherwise, looks all pretty good. There's the exhaust. Oh, shoot. Okay, we definitely do see a pretty serious leak. Yeah, there's definitely a leak coming from above the head somewhere, so that's probably a valve cover gasket. You know, I'm peeking up there and I kind of do see, right, it's kind of hard to see, but it seems like towards the valve cover gasket is where that leak starts. So that's a pretty classic 90s Japanese car thing. So the steering rack looks pretty good, no major leaks. Oh, except for this major leak right here. Oh, yikes. Looks like there's a leak coming from the maybe the front crankshaft seal, or maybe somewhere up higher. That definitely does look like possibly a crankshaft seal. Okay, that's something. Otherwise, exhaust. Here's the exhaust, looks pretty good. You know, there was one weird leak. It was like a very sticky sort of substance coming from somewhere around the differential, maybe even like towards the corner. It was kind of strange, maybe like silicone or something, like a very sticky liquid. And the differential looks okay to me. I don't see any like obvious leaks here. In fact, the axles look pretty good. Let's see. Ah, there we go. It looks like there's a leak right there. You can see this. I guess this is like a subframe bushing. Yeah, and you can see it dripping down onto that rear like control arm thing. Kind of strange. Must be some sort of like filling in that bushing or something. This side looks okay. Maybe it's already all gone. Let's see, the fronts look okay as well. So it looks like just this left rear, this driver's side rear bushing. Hopefully I can replace that without having to take out this entire subframe. All right, so let's get back to the transmission. We'll see what we're gonna need to take out. So definitely the entire exhaust is gonna need to come out. I'm gonna need to take out that drive shaft, so hopefully it'll come out in one piece. So let's first drain the transmission, and I'm gonna go ahead and drain the engine oil as well, and then we'll figure out how to get this exhaust off of here. All right, well, we had some seriously rusty exhaust bolts as usual, but the impact pulled all of them off but one. Of course, there's always got to be that one right there, and it's pretty much rounded off now. So I don't know. I think my only option is to grab my little Dremel and try and cut that thing off of there. It's a little too tight to get that Dremel in there, but if I remove this starter, I think I'll get pretty good access to that bolt. I'm gonna have to pull it off anyway, so I'll go ahead and remove that guy right now. All right, at long last, I think I finally got this thing broken off anyway. Almost. I just need to hammer off that last little bit. But I basically just ground this thing down with any sort of with my Dremel and my die grinder down there. Finally got it with the Dremel.